There's a very specific, terrifying physical sensation that takes over your entire body right before you finally decide to tell the absolute truth. Your heart starts beating so hard it feels like it might crack your ribs. Your hands get incredibly cold. Your throat tightens up, and your stomach drops into a freefall. You feel this intense physiological panic, not because you are doing something wrong, but because your nervous system knows you are about to break a massive, unspoken rule that has governed a highly toxic environment for years. You are about to stop playing the game. For the longest time, you were the designated peacekeeper. You were the person who swallowed your own discomfort to keep the boat from rocking. If someone made a passive-aggressive comment, you just awkwardly laughed it off. If a boundary was crossed, you quietly adjusted yourself to make the other person feel comfortable. You convinced yourself that staying silent was the noble thing to do. But then, a day arrived where the Holy Spirit inside of you reached an absolute boiling point. You looked at the manipulator, or the toxic family dynamic, or the incredibly one-sided friendship, and your spirit entirely rejected the compromise. Your throat unlocked. You didn't scream. You didn't throw a dramatic tantrum. You just looked them dead in the eyes and delivered a calm, devastatingly firm statement of fact. I am not going to tolerate being spoken to that way anymore. No, that is not how it happened, and I will not let you lie about it. I am officially done participating in this. You finally spoke up, and that single, terrifying moment of bravery completely changed the trajectory of your entire life. We need to have a profoundly raw conversation today about a psychological dynamic I call the sonic boom effect, and exactly why your refusal to stay quiet shattered the entire foundation of the people trying to control you. To fully grasp the magnitude of what you just accomplished, you have to understand the fragile architecture of a toxic system. Narcissists, deeply insecure people, and manipulative groups build their entire reality out of cheap, incredibly thin glass. Their power does not come from genuine authority. Their power relies 100% on the complicit silence of the people around them. They need everyone in the room to play dumb. They need the enablers to look the other way, and they absolutely need their favorite target, which was you, to absorb their abuse without filing a formal complaint. Your silence was the actual glue holding their fake empire together. They thought they had you completely trained. They mistook your massive capacity for empathy as a permanent weakness. They assumed you would just keep taking the hits forever because you were too scared of conflict to ever stand up for yourself. And then you dropped the sonic boom. When you opened your mouth and set a hard, non-negotiable boundary, you completely shattered the glass. You did not just hurt their ego, you actively threatened their entire regime. I want you to look back at exactly how they reacted in the seconds, days, and weeks after you spoke your truth. They entirely panicked. They immediately went into damage control. They probably tried to gaslight you right on the spot, telling you that you were overreacting, or that you were remembering things wrong. When that didn't work, they ran to the mutual friends and the flying monkeys to launch a smear campaign, desperately trying to paint you as the aggressive villain. They reacted with that level of sheer, unhinged chaos
because your voice absolutely terrified them. You introduced a frequency of truth into a room that had been operating on the frequency of deception for decades. They looked at you and realized, with a heavy, sinking feeling in their chest, that they no longer had the remote control to your emotions. But I want to address the heavy, painful fallout that happened next. Because speaking up is not a clean, easy process. When you shattered that glass, you got cut by some of the falling pieces. The immediate aftermath was probably incredibly messy. People you thought were your loyal friends suddenly turned their backs on you. Family members might have told you to just apologize and keep the peace. You might have been forced to entirely pack your bags and walk away from a job, a relationship, or a community that you had invested years of your premium energy into. In the middle of that isolation, human guilt probably started creeping into your brain. You sat alone in your room and wondered, did I ruin everything? Was I too harsh? Should I have just kept my mouth shut and dealt with it? I am giving you a massive spiritual mandate today. You must permanently evict that guilt from your mind. You did not ruin a good thing. You ruined a highly functional prison. You have to understand the spiritual mechanics of what actually happens when a chosen one finally uses their voice. God was waiting for your vocal cords to align with your inner discernment. He gave you the intuition to see the toxic behavior years ago, but he needed you to participate in your own rescue.
The exact second you spoke up, you gave heaven the legal, spiritual permission to step in and start clearing the room. The people you lost were not a loss. They were a divine extraction. The Creator used your boundary to force the hidden enemies out into the light. The people who got angry at your boundary are the exact people who were benefiting from your lack of one. God completely flushed the parasites out of your environment, and He used your own voice as the catalyst. Look at the absolute premium reality of the space you are occupying right now. Yes, the circle is much smaller. Yes, the phone rings a lot less. But take a very deep breath and notice the quality of the air in your life today. It is entirely clean. You do not have to walk on eggshells in your own house. You do not have to spend 3 hours rehearsing a basic conversation in the mirror just to avoid triggering a toxic person's fragile ego. You completely reclaimed your sovereignty. The people who used to control you are still sitting in the exact same dysfunctional mess. They are still running the exact same manipulative plays on new targets, entirely miserable, drowning in their own chaotic drama. But you broke the cycle. You did the hardest, most terrifying thing a deeply empathetic person can ever do. You chose your own peace over their comfort. You chose absolute, raw truth over a fake, highly curated lie. Your voice acted as a massive, heavy sword that completely severed the soul ties that were dragging you down into the dirt. You are no longer a participant in their circus. You are a completely free, highly protected, incredibly dangerous threat to the kingdom of darkness, simply because you refuse to stay quiet when the truth needs to be spoken. I am incredibly curious about the exact day this shift happened for you. Do you remember the specific moment your heart was pounding out of your chest, but you opened your mouth and said, "No," anyway? What was the exact boundary you set that made the toxic system completely collapse? How did the manipulator look when they realized your doormat days were permanently over? Share your massive victory in the comments below. We need to document the sheer power of your voice today, because your story is going to give someone else the exact courage they need to finally clear their own throat. Keep your spine straight, never apologize for the truth, and enjoy the absolute masterpiece of the peace you fought for.